everyone. Welcome to the latest installment of MSP Business School. As always, I'm Brian Doyle here as your host. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about a topic we talk often about, cybersecurity, but we're going to delve into it a little bit differently today. And my guest this afternoon, depending on where you're listening, I guess, this afternoon. But my guest today is Doug Kreitzberg from SeedPod Cyber. They provide cyber insurance or cybersecurity insurance, but much, much more than that as well. And Doug and I had the opportunity to meet a few years back in the Pitch It competition. And, a lot of the relationships we built over there, we've continued those relationships much beyond Pitch It. So I want to welcome Doug here today. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot, Brian. Really appreciate being on with you.
Well, Doug, one of the things I like to do is, for those that don't know you, share a little bit about your background and how you ultimately ended up in the world of MSP, because I'm sure as an insurer, that's a little bit different journey than a lot of the MSPs come up with, or the traditional vendor.
That's right. Yes, before starting SeedPod, I was in the insurance business for about 25 years. Most of that time I was running an organization in which we would build insurance programs for particular types of market segments or particular types of coverage like cyber insurance. And while I was there, two things occurred that kind of led me to create SeedPod. One is, we got to be a victim of an incident. So we had an issue that we had to deal with. And I got to see firsthand how that gets addressed through the lawyers and forensics and our IT people and the various laws in various states with regards to disclosure there and we marketed to small and medium sized businesses, and I couldn't figure out how they were going to be able to navigate something like this. We were a much larger company. We had the resources, but many don't. And at the same time, I was trying to build a cyber insurance program. And as I looked at the underwriting, how they were doing it, I couldn't figure out how they were knowing what was a good risk versus a not good risk there. And the questions were all over the place. And then I had MSPs who were buddies of mine, and they were complaining about having to fill out these applications. It didn't make any sense. That there wasn't a yes or no. It was something in between, and there was no way to put it in between.
And a lot of the yes and no's could be gotchas too.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought, there's if I could come up with a way to partner with MSPs, that would accomplish a couple things. One is I would get more information, so that means I can be better at pricing risk and selecting risks. And consequentially, the MSPs themselves would have another arsenal for them to sell their own cybersecurity services. And so I took some chips off the table, started SeedPod, and that's pretty much what we've done. We have a insurance program that's dedicated to the MSP channel. We sell Cyber to the MSPs themselves. And then we have a separate program in which we offer insurance to their customers as long as they are aligned with the security protocols that the MSP is offering.
Yeah, there's a lot more to cyber insurance than I think all of us give credit for, right? And, you brought up a couple of things, or at least it brought some things to my mind when you were discussing that. One, just because two companies look a lot alike from the outside doesn't mean that their risk is going to be the same when they're underwritten, right?
Right.
And there are some scary statistics that are realities out there, even if you're holding cyber insurance. So maybe, kick things off. You've talked a little bit about claims in the past with me. Maybe you want to share a little bit about that.
Yeah. The and that's what you buy insurance for, right? You buy insurance that to be there when a claim occurs, and then. Unfortunately, the stats are that 44% of the time when there is an incident, the insured isn't getting the benefit of the coverage because of deficiencies in the tech stack at time of claim. In other words, the carrier's coming in, they're seeing what happened. let's say they came in through, credential breach,
Yeah.
and there was not MFA in the environment. And then they look at the application says MFA, check, yes, there, or backup, check, yes, or, any of those controls there. And it could be unintentional, certainly. It could
Most
be
of the time, I think it's unintentional.
right, right.
We have MFA across most of our systems, but we're not paying attention to the marketing system where personally identifiable information is going in and there's no MFA there, right? So I think that's where that yes, no, gotcha point worries me for many of the people looking for cyber insured ability, because they're like, well, we have that. They check the box, yes, but it's, nobody's really watching to say, is it universal, right? Until time comes.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And the and the carriers, quite frankly, are sometimes a step behind in terms of coming up with the right way to approach risk here. I mean, the cybersecurity, as you know, is a dynamic. It's shifting all the time. Obviously, AI is now becoming a bigger part of that too, and it's tough for the underwriters to catch up. But if you're, if you want, what we're looking to do, and this is why we think the partnership with MSPs is makes a lot of sense from an insurance standpoint, is we want to make sure at the end of the day that the clients have confidence that when something does happen, that the carrier will be there for them. And that's why we've designed our underwriting approach to really understand what the technology is. The MSPs don't have to complete an application. The insured, the client, answers a few questions, but because we have that transparency into the technical environment, we're taking a lot of that uncertainty out for the client there.
Yeah, and that uncertainty and that is something that I think the client can really appreciate, and the MSP is perfectly suited to help guide that
Right.
conversation a little bit, right? They've got the knowledge that the traditional business person that we work with doesn't have,
Right.
and they're able to communicate that to folks like yourself. Maybe talk a little bit about, that part of the process, like, what are you looking for during underwriting? How are you making sure that, the customer, when that need comes, has a better than average chance of getting paid out, right? Because, let's face it, insurers are not, they know they have to pay out, but they want to limit how much they have to pay out in all occasions.
Right, right. Well, we do that a couple ways. First, just structurally, and this is more on the insurance side, we're what's known as a managing general agent. So we've created the underwriting criteria, and then we've contracted with a carrier to provide the capacity or the backing, if you will, for that. So we have a lot more control, if you will, into the process and how it will be handled, even on the claim side here. The second part is the underwriting approach that we're taking, because we're working with the MSPs. We pre-underwrite the MSP, we pre-underwrite the tech stack, we pre-underwrite the SOPs that they have with regards to the clients. So we take a lot of that friction, so to speak, out of the whole application process. And then when someone is interested in proceeding with coverage, we then, there's some specific areas that we're looking for, and we validate that they're there. And that validation process means that if a claim does occur, I can say never, but it greatly reduces that chance that there was being an issue, at least from a technical standpoint, that claim will be honored.
No, and that's huge because, it's got to be bewildering to the average layperson, the business owner who's just paid out premiums and then
Right.
finds out that, sorry, we're not going to pay in part or in whole, right? And this is great to to get that it's great that you're helping guide that, right? You take
Right.
the MSP's institutional knowledge about technology, marry it up with your, your team's knowledge of being able to get through the insurance process. And, I always say people buy things for three reasons: save money, make money, or reduce risk. And this definitely probably falls into the reduce risk column. They
Right.
may pay a little bit more, but they pay more with the understanding that they'll probably get paid out.
Right. Exactly. And when we talk about reducing risk, it's not just for the client, it's for the MSP as well.
Yeah.
Because when that client does have a claim, and if it's not honored, what are they going to start thinking about? They're going to be looking to their technology provider here. And this is an area in which we help that MSP kind of secure themselves.
Well, you were saying that you're even seeing a trend now where some of the best in breed MSPs that you partner with are requiring insurance before they even take on the client.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that as more of a trend now than even just a couple of years ago, and even those that haven't put it as a requirement, many more are beginning to validate who does have insurance as part of that. And I think that's a good move from an MSP perspective. It's a risk management move there. What it will mean is they have access to, obviously coverage in case something happens, because otherwise they'll look for, they always think the MSP has the deepest pockets, and they'll be looking to them.
And, we were talking a little bit before, and maybe I'll preface this with, when I first got into IT, call it 20, 25, maybe even 30 years ago at this point, but one of the trends that we saw was a lot of accounting firms opened up IT shops for no other reason than when they were doing the P&Ls and doing the taxes each year and working with those companies, they saw how much they were spending on IT and said, we should get on that. You mentioned that you're starting to see a trend where the insurers are starting to look at becoming providers. Maybe you can expand a little bit on that, because that was honestly something I wasn't as aware of.
Yeah, it really, I think over the past year, we've seen a lot more of it, and some big carriers across the board. What they're doing is they're offering managed security services and some other services, depending upon the carrier, as part of their solution. In some cases, they're offering the entire tech stack here. We had one of our partners had a client meeting a few months ago with another carrier, and the carrier said, as part of after the review of everything, the carrier said, okay, we'll be willing to offer terms, but you've got to rip out your EDR because we're going to put in our own here. And obviously that doesn't sit well with the MSP here, and the client is confused too. The client doesn't, who are they going to look to from the technology standpoint and the security? I don't think, I try to put myself in the shoes of that insurance carrier. I don't think it's a good business strategy long term. I think it creates conflicts of interest, to be quite honest with you.
Well, that's where I was going. We think about the audit and assessment world, and it's the rooster watching the hen house, right? Most MSPs are helping get audit ready, but they certainly can't be the people doing the audit. And right here, we're saying, hey, we'll protect ourselves by providing the security stack. But unless they're going to write a guarantee that says, you use my security stack, we'll pay your claim, I'm sure that's not in the contract.
Right.
There's definitely a separation, because let's face it, it's probably another, corporation underneath their overall holdings umbrella.
Right. Yeah. And, and I think that, and the client doesn't view that carrier as their technology partner. I don't see a world in which that really will persist. So, but it is a reality right now, and those MSPs who are working with clients and don't have a partnership with an entity like SeedPod. I mean, there's others certainly there, but I think they're kind of exposing themselves to business being, if not taken away, totally starting to be fractured.
So, Doug, one of the things that CPOD can bring to an MSP is kind of the value add that wraps around the traditional services. One that you mentioned to me a little bit was that process. So maybe you can dive in there and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We have a couple solutions that are based on a technology that we've developed. One of them we call the insurability audit. So with that, the MSP will take a client's insurance policy, and we have an AI-based tool that evaluates it from two different perspectives. One is the coverage itself adequate? Are the limits appropriate? Is the wording appropriate? And we base it off of claims data that we've trained a model on by the size of firm and the type of industry that it's in. And then the other is we look at that control stack that the carrier is expecting to see against the control stack that exists to validate that, if there was a claim, would that carrier would that client be paid? And then we also couch this in terms of the cost of risk overall that type of business is facing. And the ultimate, report really provides a great tool for that MSP to have an intelligent conversation with the client about risk without kind of, just jumping into FUD, fear, uncertainty, doubt there. They can talk to a client in words they understand, which are dollars and cents more often than not.
Which is super important, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And we also have now a new tool in which we're offering embedded underwriting. It's actually we're pulling via API. We can pull in the control information, and so within 30 seconds we can produce an insurance quote for a customer, and actually two quotes. One based upon their current tech stack and what it would look like if they made improvements to the tech stack. And then that way both the client and knows, hey, this is what I need in order to be insured. And then if I wanted to optimize, here are some things that I may want to think about, such as, a SIM or a SOC or an MDR solution here, beyond kind of the baseline that we typically look for, which would be backup and MFA and EDR and other components as part of that.
Right. And that's great information for the MSP to help build that budget, make that sale, look at a 5-year window and go, look, here's your crossover point on premium savings versus capital expenditure. And you're going to be safer right off the rip too.
Yeah, exactly. And that seems from a best practice perspective is how our many of our MSP partners are using that tool to help them as they move forward here there. And so that we also have a new partner program from a fee income perspective. We can't pay commissions due to insurance regulations, but because of the participation that the MSP has in our underwriting process, that enables us for some fee income opportunities as well.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how can a partner engage with CPOD? What's the right way to kind of start the process, and what can they potentially expect as they enter into a relationship with CPOD?
Sure. Well, there's two ways. Usually, the typical way is we have an assessment process of the MSP. We actually do an insurability audit of the MSP itself here, and that accomplishes kind of we do check certain things to be a SeedPod partner. We want to make sure they have the right tech stack in place and the right procedures in place to help us from an underwriting standpoint of their clients' coverage. And then that also enables us to write their own tech E&O cyber if they're interested as well. And our terms are usually pretty good compared to the market, and that can provide a real value. So the assessment process itself is, it depends on the size of the MSP, certainly, but it's a 20-minute to 45-minute process here. They get a copy of the insurability report. They get to see what their clients would be seeing in their environment, and then obviously the opportunity, if they wish, to save on the insurance. And that's basically how that process. Once we have that in place, what we do is we work with them to map out what is their client communication looks like over the next year, their QBR process in place. And then we have tools that are set up for them to run, the insurability audit on those partners as they come up, and they can fold that right into their, business process communication and workflows there.
Awesome. So Doug, this has been great. I think maybe, as we wind down here, any last thoughts, anything else that you want to share before we tell people how to get in touch with you and break for today?
Yeah, I think the basic thing is that cyber insurance can be a great tool to help you sell your cybersecurity services, and to that it can be, and it should be, a tool to help you kind of position yourself as that cyber risk manager to your customers. Because if you're not going to do it, I can tell you somebody else will be trying to do that for you too.
Awesome. Well, Doug, tell people, what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
Best ways, you can reach me or reach us at info@seedpodcyber.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can message me there. That's for sure. We look forward to working with you.
Yeah, and and Doug, so we always put your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So anybody watching on YouTube today, or anybody listening through traditional resources, just go into the show notes. You'll definitely be able to see Doug's LinkedIn address, the info@CPod address as well, and we'll make sure that if you can't find Doug through those means, reach to us, and we'll be happy to put you together.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Brian, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. Love what you're doing.
Really, thank you for joining me today. Look forward to further discussions, because we have very symbiotic platforms, if you will. But, really thank you for joining today and sharing with the audience, things to think about when it comes to cybersecurity and cyber insurability, more importantly. Right. So appreciate you coming on board.
All right. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you, everybody. Oops, and let me stop.